Hey everybody, welcome back to the Greg Brownderville Dimension. I have a special episode for you today. I recently went to Wales. I went there last winter and I went again this winter. And this time I had a special mission. I had been hearing about this Welsh holiday called Hen Galan that is celebrated in one small part of Wales out in far west of Wales in Pembrokeshire in an area called Carwyn. It's a valley out there. When you're in that valley, you are about 40 or 50 miles from Ireland by ferry. So that's the area where this takes place. Hen Galan, that's a Welsh phrase that translates as something like the old new year, which sounds like a contradiction in terms. But what it means is that this part of Wales celebrates the new year in accordance with the old Julian calendar as opposed to the Gregorian calendar that most of us use here in the West. And so according to that calendar, the New Year's Day is January 13th, not January 1st. And so on January 13th, the people of Carwyn celebrate Hen Galan. And it involves something called Calannig in the daytime and then a celebration at night at a pub. Well, the Calannig part is really for the children, and the nighttime celebration is for the adults. And you'll hear all about that and learn all about it in this episode. Well, I had read that there's this one pub in Carwyn where you need to go if you really want to experience Hen Galan. It was run by a woman named Bessie Davies, who had been the proprietor of this pub for decades. And this pub has various names. Locally, when you're in Carwyn, people just say Bessie's. That's what I heard the most. It's also known as Dyffryn Arms and also Hen Galen. And so it has various names. Well, this pub is a public house in the old sense of pub. It was Bessie's home. And like she lived there. And when you go to that pub, you're going into her house. I was really excited to meet Bessie, but actually she died in December of 2023, just a few weeks before I was in the area. And so in a way, it was this, well, in many ways, it was a strange time to be in Carwyn celebrating Hen Galan. This kind of crossroads moment for the community, celebrating Hen Galan without Bessie. What would that mean? What would that be like? I was actually there to experience that. And so I was really interested to see how the local folks would handle that, how Hen Galan would feel to them, given that Bessie was absent. The celebration was still at her pub, and her kinfolks were the ones there serving the kuru, the beer, mainly Bass. And people, it was wonderful. I mean, my girlfriend and I were the only people there who weren't locals. It felt like a family gathering. And that folks had brought these traditional Welsh treats like bara brith, which means speckled bread, homemade, like in Tupperware-like containers, and that wonderful, incomparable Welsh butter. If you've never had Welsh butter, I highly recommend it. And also Welsh cakes. People had brought homemade Welsh cakes, that sort of thing, to the celebration. They sang songs. They told stories all in Welsh. I mean, everybody there spoke Welsh, and just about. I think there was an Englishman there who did not. But he is friends with the locals and has spent a lot of time in Cwmgwaun, so he's kind of a local by now. But when you were in the room, all you heard was Welsh. And so it was really wonderful to see this, hear the musicians, hear the songs. I wanted to tell y'all about my first night in Cwmgwaun. So my girlfriend and I had missed a train. We really had a hard day traveling. A lot of things had gone wrong. And we got into Abergwaun, the town where we were staying, which in English is called Fishguard. We got into that town very late and kind of feeling defeated. We saw this one pub called the Royal Oak was open, and we went in thinking maybe we could eat because we were hungry. We went into Royal Oak. They said, sorry, we're not serving food at this hour. And this guy came up to me, and he came up to me and he said, man, the only place you're going to be able to get food at this hour is at the pizza place across the street. And so we went across there. And something about when he made eye contact with me and spoke to me, even though he was saying something so just kind of informational, like the pizza place across the street, I had this feeling, and this is something that I've felt many times collecting folklore. I've done a lot of folklore field work where I just go out and talk to people and look for stories. And I think those of you who've done this type of work can confirm what I'm about to say. Sometimes you just get the feeling that the gods of folklore are with you, and they are going to make something amazing happen for you. I felt that, and you develop, as a folklorist, you develop a kind of sixth sense when you come into a town. You just have a sense of where to go to find the stories. And so when I made eye contact with this guy at the Royal Oak pub, and he said, go across the street to eat pizza, I had a feeling that's the guy I've got to talk to. And before I met him that night, it's very late, I was just thinking, get a bite to eat and go crash because, we were exhausted. But when I saw him, I just thought, he's the guy. I got to talk to him. So we did go eat some pizza, and then we went back across the street to the Royal Oak, and he was still there, and I struck up a conversation with him. And it turns out that of all the people in the whole of Cwmgwaun, the entire valley, he was the best person for me to talk to. Even though he's young, he was 29 years old, and I think he said he was going to turn 30 soon. I'm not sure when his birthday is. So he's 29 or 30. He is the ringleader of Hen Galan, especially now that Bessie's gone. The next night, that was the night before Hen Galan. The next night, we went to Bessie's and celebrated Hen Galan, and he was the guy, like the ringleader, kind of like a master of ceremonies. And we stayed out there at Bessie's for the entirety of the Hen Galan celebration. And then we went back to Abergwaun, which is where this guy lives. His name is Carwyn. He kindly and graciously took us up to his apartment, which is above a pub in Abergwaun, and had a conversation with me. I didn't have cameras with me. I had audio equipment. And so what the rest of this podcast will be is the conversation between Carwyn and me about Hen Galan and his life in Cwmgwaun and how his experience of Wales and the local culture has been informed by Hen Galan and his relationship with Bessie. His apartment was very interesting. It was full of little toy tractors still in the plastic boxes. There were a ton of them around the apartment. And we sat at this little table and had the following conversation. Hope you all enjoy it. All right, Carwyn, thank you for being with me today. Tell me your name, please.
Carwyn Reed.
And what's been your experience with Hen Galan?
I born, raised in Gwaun Valley, brought up throughout the whole of Hen Galan. And as as a child going through Kalennig and everything, singing from one house to another.
And explain to our listeners what Hen Galan is.
It's an old tradition which comes through from the Gregorian calendar and the Julian calendar, which was back from the 1700s. And Gwaun Valley still carries on from that new year, where the children goes out singing Kalennig, folk Kalennig then, old traditional songs. The children get Kalennig then, which could be from 50 pence to £1, or a cake, or an apple, or an orange. Some houses let you come into the house where they give foods, full spread of foods along the table. And the tradition is to be given something for the singing of. And that is where Kalenni comes from, is to give something to someone who sang Happy New Year in your household, to your household. From that, then the children get that, and then afterwards, then the adults get to go to a pub, or used to be, way before, was a farm, where they would make home brew, which is the brewing of alcohol to each household. And they used to go around from one house to another and one farm to another, and they used to give a Happy New Year, and then have their Kalennig, and then they go to the next house, where there was a different then brew of different things, which might be gin, which that was slow gin, usually made, or any type of gin or vodka, where they would make their own. It wasn't from one pub to another, it was to be welcomed from one house to another.
Right. And do you remember some of the, because you did this as a child, right? You participated.
Yeah.
Do you remember any of the songs that you sang as a child?
Yeah. From a very young child doing it, and I did it till I was the age of 18. And technically I wasn't supposed to do it at the age of 18. I was you stop at 16. But I was told that because of tradition, I was told to do it to the age of 18. And to help the youngsters, which I did do at the time, to get them to know, because there's so many different songs. Usually you're used to having 3 or 4 songs. I knew all 7, and one of which was very, very old. And I taught the youngsters the very old one. And it was all to do with the fact of keeping the tradition going.
Would you be comfortable singing one of those songs for us? A verse or two?
I can.
These songs would always be in Welsh, correct?
Correct, yeah. These are all Welsh songs, yeah. There's no English verse. Mae dydd Calan wedi gwawrio, di tra hynod i'w gofio. Dydd i'w rhoddi, dydd i'w dderbyn, yw y trydydd ar ddeg o'r flwyddyn. Rowch yn hael i'r ei gwael, rowch yn hael i'r ei gwael, pawb sy'n ffyddlon i roi roddion, yw rai hynny sydd yn cael. Dawn ma nawr ni wedi pennu, llwyddiant mawr fo uchwyr teulu. Os gawn eto flwyddyn gyfan, cadw'n fan i'r hen ddydd y Calan. Rowch yn hael i'r ei gwael, rowch yn hael i'r ei gwael, pawb sy'n ffodlon i roi'r roddion. I'r rai hynny sydd yn cael. Blwyddyn newydd i chi, ac i bawb sydd yn y tŷ, dyma yw ein blwyddyn ni, ar ddechrau'r flwyddyn hon, blwyddyn newydd a.
Thank you. Thank you. So, and for listeners who don't have any Welsh, would you tell us a little bit about what that song is saying? You don't have to translate it word for word, but.
It is, to start with, it's Happy New Year to you and to those that's in your house. This is the last words that I can say, and it's Happy New Year, which is the last lot of the singing.
Great. And so you are a first language Welsh speaker, correct?
Yes.
So you spoke only Welsh until what age?
7 years of age.
Was it easy for you then to learn English, or did you find it difficult?
English for me was foreign. I'd heard different words given, but at the age of 7, I was lucky enough that I had a next door neighbour who was South African, and she taught me English whilst I taught her Welsh. The whole of the valley and nigh on 90 to 95% of my family were Welsh speakers, so there wasn't very much chance of English apart from my next door neighbour, and I taught her Welsh, she taught me English, and apart from that, you got taught after the age of 8. You were taught in school a bit of English. Apart of all of that, apart from being in Bessie's pub, I had no English whatsoever. And I'm not saying it was a bad thing at all. It's the way we were brought up. But then learning English after that was very hard, because you were taught then different, when you obviously come to spelling and everything. With Welsh, the way you say something was the way you spelt it.
Mm-hmm.
With English, you had silence, A, E, I, O, U. They were the silent part of it. And in Welsh, you said those parts then. It was very hard to learn something that you've never heard before until you were the age of 7. Bessie herself, I remember Bessie saying she was 15 when she started learning English, which is a very big jump from one language that you know and then having to learn a completely different language.
And just so our listeners will know, who is Bessie?
Bessie is the Dyffryn Arms, Gwaun Valley, who is known worldwide as Bessie's Pub. Unfortunately now has passed away, and she ran the pub from the age of 20 to the age of 93. And she's welcomed and made welcome people from all over the world, where there is money around the walls from all different parts of the world. She has had she's had families of a very old age. I'll never forget 3 years ago, a man of 82 who had been coming there since he was a child and brought his children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And Bessie had a photo. I personally took the photo. I remember it like it was yesterday, where Bessie had sat there and the great-grandfather was there. It was 5 generations. And Bessie remembers him coming in when he was much older than Bessie. And then the children, and he brought everyone from one age to another, and they had a 2-year-old child as a babe in arms. And it was a 5-generation photo. And I'll never forget the smile on Bessie's face, because she'd had that 5 generations. And the child was sat with her. You couldn't make it up. You couldn't make a film of it. And the respect comes to her, known worldwide as a landlady, but also as a friend.
And was she the driving force behind the fact that the Gwaun Valley continued to celebrate?
Bessie was our mother. Bessie was our mother. She kept the traditions going. She was the woman who kept everything going. Didn't matter what you did, what could have been. She did charity work. She did the chapel. She did the school. We were Gwaun Valley Dragons, which was a huge charity group, and she was the one who was driving everything. If there was anything we were raising money for, Bessie made it her job. She made the most money for charities. She was the mother hen, and she still will be. Although she's passed, she still will be the mother hen of raising money. There is no way of being different. And the old boys are past now. She used to turn around and say, Ron Lloyd, who's passed many years ago, Ron, you haven't bought a raffle ticket off me. And he had. He'd bought 17, 15, anything. He'd bought a load of them, but she used to use him to get everybody else to buy a ticket as well. So Ron would used to put another £1 down, I'll buy another ticket. Everyone else was buying a ticket then, because Bessie had a reason then to tackle everybody else, to buy a ticket, raising money for charity. She was the mother hen of. There was no one that could beat Bessie on charity fundraising.
Do you think that the Kalenic tradition would have lived even without Bessie, or was it her influence that has kept that going?
Um, no, I wouldn't say that. Yes, Bessie has got a big deal in it. Yes. But there's a hell of a lot of other people involved throughout the whole of the Gwen Valley. You're going around the top of the Gwen Valley, you're going through the Gwen Valley. You're talking a couple of hundred houses. No, Bessie wasn't just the cog in the works. There was a hell of a lot of other cogs in the works. There's a lot of other women and families. Hen Galan runs throughout every house. You can't put something like that down to one person.
She provided the central meeting place. That was really her contribution.
Yeah, but and that's for the evening. That's for the evening, not the day. Now the children go round every single house and farmhouse throughout the whole of the village, and above the top of the valley. You're going round. You're going up around 200 houses, and the children then, and that's their day. The day is them.
And it starts around 9 a.m., does it?
You can start at about 7:30. Some children, going back a few years, we used to, I did, and so did a hell of a lot of them, going out on push bikes. They were cycling from one house to the other. You were in a group, 4 or 5 of you, and you were 14, 15, 16, you were doing push bikes. And you were going round from one house to another then. But you were, as I say, you were older. You didn't have to be carried around in the car. And back years ago, there wasn't a car to carry you. And you go, I did it in the snow. I went out in the snow. A lot of us did. Cars couldn't go any further than so and so. There we are. I'll take my bike.
And this is, if this happens on a weekday, they let school out?
Yes, they do. So the school does different to any other primary school, high school, whatever school you go into. You have to call to the school and you have to sing Kalenic at school to be jotted in that you're present. So you can do what you want, but you have to, as long as it's on a weekday, like this year now is on a Saturday. So you don't have to call in the school. But usually if it falls on a weekday, you call to the school and you sing for Hen Galan, and the teachers come out, then they give you Kalenic, and they give you a sweet or a cake or something like that, and then you carry on. The ones who don't have the family where they can go out, or they can't go out with certain ways, the teachers will then take you out to the closest houses in a community, and they'll sing then so that those children get to have a chance to learn about it and get a bit of Kalenic, something so that they get a taste of it.
And when you say they call at school, just to be clear, that means show up out on the grounds of the school and sing, right?
Yes.
And is it also a part of the tradition that if someone has, if the householder has passed away in the last couple of months, the children, out of respect, don't sing for Kalenig.
There's a very, very, very old tradition. So, if someone of a household or a farm has passed away within the last 11 months, the very old tradition says you don't call there for Kalenig, you leave them to mourn. But that has been shifted out a little bit in the past 17 to 20 years, because the people who are in that house don't want the children to lose out on Kalenig, and they enjoy listening to the children singing. So they usually turn around and say, please carry on doing this here, because we don't want to miss this out either. You've got so much enjoyment of listening to the children and seeing the children at your door singing, and then you go out to them and give them Kalenig and everything like that, and a bit of sweet or whatever, and they are so, in a way, I think the word is a little bit like besotted, because you want to see the children, you want to see them enjoying themselves, you want to see them doing it from this year to another. And years ago, you never called with anyone who had a family member, or especially the house, who lost a person. You never visited there because you left them for a year of mourning. But it's completely different now. Everyone wants to see the children, and it's nice to see the children come to your door. And it's changed that part of tradition, but it's actually very nice, because the children still come to see you. And they come and they sing at the door. And you get to have a chat with everyone, and here you are, sweets, as I say, sweets, cakes, anything like that, or 50 pence or a pound. Thank you very much for calling, and away you go.
And isn't it true that Bessie herself passed away just on December 16th of 2023? Do I have that right?
Yes.
And so this was the first Hen Galan at Different Arms, her pub, without her.
Yeah.
In your life, in
my
many
life,
decades, yeah.
Yeah.
What was that like for you, and how did it change the experience? How are you feeling tonight? I mean, this is, just so our listeners know, we're taping this conversation like right after midnight on January 13th into the 14th. So it's all fresh. I'm just wondering how you're feeling, having just experienced Hen Galen without Bessie. He just handed me the program from her funeral, and it says Mom Kelly.
Mom Kelly, which is hang on. T. Kelly is the pub. Well, Mom Kelly is Mom Kelly. Kelly means holly, right?
Like the tree.
Yeah, which we have a tree outside there. There's a holly tree, and Kelly means holly, and I can't remember. What's wrong with me? Llwyn Celyn, man. Sorry, I beg my pardon. Llwyn Celyn. So Llwyn Celyn, which is the name of the pub, it's not the Different Arms, it's Llwyn Celyn. And Llwyn Celyn stands for holly tree.
Mm-hmm.
There's a holly tree there. And it's been called Llwyn Celyn since 1845. and that pub's always been like that. So a lot of people, I don't know whether I should be saying all this, mind you. There's a lot of things about the pub that people don't know. But it's Hen Galan, which is holly tree. There's a holly tree there. And Bessie moved there when she was 20 years of age. Married. And Bessie didn't like it there. She was really thing of, I don't like it here. I didn't want to stay. But she'd married in and she'd sticked. Now, her husband, Glyndor's parents were there, Mr. and Mrs. Howells, and she absolutely despised living there. She didn't want to live there at all. But she was brought there then, and she got used to it. And I remember her telling me, about 80 then, I think, if I remember right. I wouldn't change it for the world. Came in here, didn't like it, got used to it, got to know people, and I've never thought about changing anything about what I've done. She had, she was milking for her son and everything up the road, and there was loads of different things. She remembers my great-grandfather being in there. The stories she could tell would have been mind-blowing. She told me plenty of stories, but not everything. She told me plenty of my great-grandfather and the things that used to go on. And compared to what we have today, they were very, very wild years ago. And to the point of telling me of one of the farmers up the top of the road who used to come down by Bullbuck. And my great-grandfather then being on horseback. And people coming down on all different kinds of animals and tie them up to the fence then and coming in to have a few pints and then having to get back on them to go home. There's a hell of a lot of different stories that if that woman ever wrote it down, I think there'd be a hell of a lot of divorces, to be honest, and a hell of a lot of enjoyment in the stories that was given. These certain stories of things that used to go on. To be honest, to what we live with today, as we are as youngsters now, the saying youngsters, I'm nearly 30.
You're 30 now?
I'm coming up to 30. But what they used to do years ago, we would never be allowed to get away with today.
Is there a story that was particularly interesting to you that you can recall that you might share?
You're pushing it now. I'm not allowed to tell these stories. My great-grandfather. He used to go horseback then over to Newport, Pembrokeshire. He's taking eggs and chicken, dressed chicken and everything like that, wherever they had on the farm that wasn't any use very much, taking over now then to Newport. selling it over there now. Now, the eggs he was selling was my grandfather, so his son. It was his chickens, his franchise, but his father used to take the eggs over to Newport to sell. So my great-grandfather then, his father sold them over in Newport. He was taking then meat and everything over. Back then, rabbit, anything that he was catching, he was taking over, cleaned and everything ready for everyone to have. So there was session over in Newport. So back he comes over the mountain then to Bessie's. Go into Bessie's and have a couple of pints and bit of singing. Everything was always involved back then. Out he comes now. Then he jump on the horse, but he'd be back to front. So he's slapping the ass instead of slapping the throat of the horse. No, the horse wouldn't go. Jump off the horse now, then back into the pub. He'd say to Bessie, "Oh, the bloody horse won't fucking go. Won't go. Another couple of pints, or 5. Back onto the horse now then. No, the horse won't go anywhere. Gwyn, then Bessie's son, went out and said to my great-grandfather Thomas, "Tom, you're facing the wrong way for a start. You can't hit the horse on the backside and expect it to go anywhere." Managed to get him round then. Untied the horse off the rail. Off you go now then. It's less than a quarter of a mile now to the post office where my grandfather was. Off he goes now then. He's fallen off halfway through. Now the horse comes home and walks straight into the stable with no man or woman on top. My great-grandmother then, Maggie, shouting up to my grandfather and my grandmother, grandfather and great-uncle, "Right then, boys, we better go out now to find your father." "Why, where is he?" "Well, the horse has come home, but he hasn't. The horse has come home, but he hasn't come home with." So off they go up the road and they find my great-grandfather in the ditch, with the horses thrown him off and carried on walking and left him where he was. Pick him up, bring him home. Next morning, time for milking. And my great-grandfather used to turn round then to Maggie, his wife. "Good God, that was a good night, wasn't it, last night?" And Maggie used to turn round and say, "I wasn't with you. I think you had the best night, not me."
As far as you know, has anything mystical or paranormal ever happened in connection with the pub or that part of the
Nothing to
of
my
the valley?
experience. Nothing to my experience.
So,
Nothing to what I know either.
So back to my question about this having been the first Hen Galan without Bessie, could you put into words what that was like, or how it was different, or what it meant to you?
You're going fucking deep now. I can't answer that question.
It's really striking, Carwyn, that you were one of the youngest people, maybe the youngest person at the gathering tonight, and yet you seem to be the leader. I mean, you were the song leader.
I've done this since I was a child. I've been there since I was a child. What you might not have realised, the two ladies who were singing, one's my great auntie. She had remarried. She was married to my great uncle, who died 3 months before I was born. The lady to her, from where you were standing, would be to her right, is her sister-in-law, which is my great auntie. And then the other one then was the sister of, the two ladies that were singing.
Yes.
Those two sisters. My great auntie was there, and then my great auntie was there in Little Wen, which is the short with a very high voice. Is that one's older sister, Auntie Little Wen, and she's Auntie Little Wen to me. She's not my auntie. She's married to my auntie. And then Auntie Marianne was sat next door. So I've sang with them since I was a child. Since I was that. You can't. The reason I was dropping down in my voice of being loud, I'll say, to that was because they're the ones who's always taught me. When I was singing of a high voice, I was going over them.
You mean loud voice or?
Not loud. It's a commanding voice.
Yeah.
It's a very, very, and I'm not being funny. I was a very commanding voice. I can sing to the whole of low voice to the point of everyone shuts up.
So when you say high, you don't mean a high pitch. You just mean a commanding, strong voice.
Yeah, it's a because I've got such a low voice. But then when I actually sing, I won't say it's like a foghorn. It's such a. I went and sang this evening, and Lil Wyn and Gwenda went, oh, bloody hell, because it's such a small room. It's a big amount coming in, and I sometimes I don't even realise. I can be in the Royal Oak in Fishguard, and I can start singing, and I'll take over the whole pub, and it'll get everyone to be silent. Because we were in such a small place this evening, obviously, when I went to sing, my auntie went, oh, God, like that. Do you understand what I mean?
Right, yeah. So you toned it down a little bit to make room out of respect
so I
for
can
them.
give them, and I know that they weren't very well, with one other chest infection and whatever. But I had to tone down to let them sing, because it's not just me. It's not just about me. Hen Galan's not just about me singing. These are the ladies who've been doing it for the whole of my life. I'm coming up to 30 this year, and I remember them doing it from an infant.
But it's striking, because there are all these people your age and younger or slightly older in the valley who aren't there and don't feel the way you do about this tradition. What do you think it is about you?
No, I went in to see Bessie's grandchildren. They didn't want to come in tonight, some of them, because Bessie's only just passed. And I agree, but disagree. I didn't want to come up there this evening because Bessie's not just long past, and you're in the same room as what she used to live in. You're in the pub that she used to run, and I completely agree. But Bessie was the woman who absolutely adored Hen Galan. And if we'd have cancelled that evening in the pub, it would have been wrong, because I know for a fact that Bessie would never want that. It was her day, that way she absolutely adored seeing the children, having people in the pub drinking, enjoying, singing. She used to come even to the last days. I remember about 5 or 6 years ago, the last time she come in to Hen Galan, she waited for everybody to leave, and she'd come in then and she'd ask, "Oh, can you sing Calon Lan? Or can you sing this? Or can you sing that?" And she absolutely adored that evening. And Hen Galan was her most favourite day. She hated birthdays, and she hated anniversaries, and she hated Christmas. But Hen Galan was the day where she got to see the kids coming round and giving Kalenni, giving anything she could. And then the evening then would be with everybody else, and she used to come in then and have a chat and talk about old days and the old boys who had now passed away. And then she'd come in then, "Oh, can you sing this? Or can you sing that?" And that's what she adored.
And so if she had been there tonight, she would have been serving beer and food and coming in occasionally to listen to the singing, or what? How? What
If
would
we
she?
went back 10 years, well, less than 10 years ago, if she'd have been given 2 new kneecaps, she'd have been behind the bar tonight serving absolutely everyone and enjoying and telling everyone, "I want this song." And her song was always Calon Lan. That was the one thing she always asked for.
And would you be kind enough to sing a verse of that for us, so our listeners could just hear the tune and get a feel for it?
Yes, of course I can. Nid yw'n gofyn bywyd moethus, air yr byd na'i berlau man. Gofyn wyf am galon hapus, calon honest, calon lan. Calon lan yn llawn dani, Tek a chyn ar lilid los, dim ond calon lan all canu, canu'r ddydd a chanu'r nos.
Well, I think those were most of my questions, Carwyn, and I really appreciate your time. Oedd hi'n braf iawn I cwrdd â chi. Blwyddyn newydd dda. Thank you for your time. Is there anything else that you'd like to say about Hen Galan or about this region or about these people before we close it out?
Yeah, we're always open to have anyone around for Hen Galan. Bessie was known worldwide, and we will not stop to welcome everyone in that pub from all different corners of the world. Bessie used to enjoy to see everyone there, and we will always welcome those from every corners of the world. Please do come and visit Hen Galen, different names, and as everybody knows, Bessie's.
Well, I can certainly attest that the people are very welcoming. We felt warmly welcome tonight, and I thank you for staying up late with me to have this beautiful conversation. It really meant a lot to me. I know it will to our listeners. Thank you, Carwyn.
Blwyddyn newydd dda.
Blwyddyn newydd dda.